Hey everybody, what's going on? This is the Hammer
Um,
Podcast. It's December 29th. I got these two crazy folks on the video chat here, Laura and James. And Laura,
yeah,
what the happened to Griffey's money, huh?
here's my money.
Right. What money?
Where's my money?
Yeah, right. Like I remember those. What? Like the last time we were all talking, you said,
Yeah.
"Hey, I need some money to do some stuff," and I was like, "I got you."
Not
And that was like what, a year ago?
Let me
not
check my
some,
notes.
not half
Uh,
my cash, all my cash.
oh, right. Was that like when I asked you for like $160 and you were like, "Yeah, I got $160," and I was like, "Must be freaking nice." And then
Oh, he's just swimming in
yes,
money, Laura. He's swimming in money. He wipes
Yeah,
I
his he
do
wipes his
remember
ass
that.
with hundreds. He does.
us Californians, man.
I know.
I think you were hoping to make an investment, and then I think at some point when I hadn't called you for so many months, you've thought, "Well, there went my $160."
Yeah, I was like, all of a sudden you changed your name and like all this shit happened. I was like, okay, what's going on here?
I did some stuff. Why don't I share that with you so you don't feel like you wasted $160? How does that sound?
Yeah, I know. I was
last
like,
time we
I'm
last
looking
time
at
we
your
saw her,
headset.
last time we saw her, she had like a little curly mustache and sunglasses and a trench coat with the, so nobody recognizes her.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I
Yeah.
was going to say
Okay.
that headset looks about $160, right? That you're wearing right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at least it went to good use.
Well,
I don't know that Irish paneling she's got in the
no.
back over there. That's about $160, or is that just one
This is
sheet?
my
One sheet of
basement
paneling.
guest room, which is now also my office and the place we throw stuff that we don't have a place for. So there's
Ah.
just like stuff everywhere.
All
Everyone's got
right.
a room like that. That's my
Okay.
office today.
Excellent. Before we
Nice.
start, I want to let everybody know, and I've been talking to James about this. I've had people call me saying, "Hey, they want to be on." Don't text me. On top of my channel page, right on the top, there's a big red arrow that says, "If you want to be on the show, click on the icon." Okay, click on it, and then send me a message through there. There's stuff you have to read and all that stuff. So if you want to be on, don't text me. Just send me a message through the email. We'll all be good. So, alrighty.
Cool.
Okay, Laura, it's all
Okay.
yours.
Oh, I guess I'm on the spot now. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I've spent the last few months doing some stuff, Griffey. So I hope that after tonight you will decide that your $160 was not wasted. Let me just quick review what the heck you gave me $160 for. Remember, we were talking about the Clemensons and Agape boarding school and all of the different sort of business entities that this family has created to kind of protect their interests and protect their money and their property, really. Well,
Yeah.
I had discovered that in Cedar County alone, this does not include any other area in Missouri or anywhere else, but in just
Uh oh, she's breaking up.
these folks. Oh, can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yes.
Yeah, there you
How
go.
about
There you
now?
go.
Is that
Yeah.
better?
Boom. Yeah, yeah. You said
Okay.
you're saying just the Cedar County alone, and then broke up.
Oh, sorry about that.
Sorry.
So it is just in Cedar County alone that I found these 160 roughly. It was actually ended up being a little bit more than that, but there was roughly 160 property transactions that I did not have access to. So the Cedar County Recorder's Office shows a list of all of the like property trades and sales and whatnot, but like it wouldn't let me look at the documents without paying a fee. And so I was able to negotiate with the county recorder a little bit, and she said that I could access the documents for $1 per document. So basically, you gave me hundreds. I think you gave me 165 actually. And so basically that covered the the property recording documents, and that turned out to be really helpful, actually, because
And the other
after,
and the other $5 you spent on what? A bottle of Boone's Farm?
yeah, exactly. No, I have actually not. I think I've still got like $20 in credit left on
go.
the Cedar County site.
Nice.
But don't worry, I've burned through some extra money doing some other stuff as well, just kind of on my own. So I'm in it just as deep as you are, man. So I hope I get something out of this too, and that I didn't screw up too bad. So
It's all good.
I'm gonna
It's just
try.
money. He can make more. It's just money.
Honestly, that's just 2 tanks of gas here in California. Like I'm okay. We're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am gonna hope that I can share my screen without screwing up the audio or the video too much.
That's all right.
So,
Like I said, we're double recording there. So
here we go. Okay, I'm gonna close that. I'm gonna open this one, and I'm gonna try and see if I can. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but you can't see me anymore, right?
No.
No.
Okay.
All I see is an L.
Great. So I'm gonna go into view in the slideshow. Here we are. Okay. Can
There
you
you
see
go.
what the blank happened to Griffey's $160?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
On
I
screen?
see that.
Sweet. All right. So I think we just already reviewed this history. You gave me $160, and I was going to do some stuff, and then I did some stuff, and now we're back, and I'm going to talk about the stuff that I did. So essentially, as you may recall, I had collected during the last podcast, I think I showed you some of this. I had collected a list of all the different property transactions that this Agape group of people had engaged in. And there were some names, and there were some business names, and, like people can own property, businesses can own property, trusts can own property, all sorts of things can own property. And so like I had already figured out like what properties kind of were associated with Agape, and I had gotten a list of just all these transactions, and as it turns out, like they have only throughout the years owned between maybe I would say 12 and 16 parcels of land in Stockton. So my question is like, why are there so many property transactions for like that many properties? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So I know this is kind of boring. I did find a couple of extra interesting property transactions, and we probably won't get to those today because I wanted to spend a little bit of time just kind of showing you the properties that Agape owns, and that was kind of difficult to figure out based on some of the documents that I got, but I will spare you all the details of all of the math and plat map learning that I had to do, and just show you the end result, which is much more interesting. So what I'm showing you right now on the screen is just like what Cedar County kind of looks like. And that's what the yellow line sort of represents, or excuse me, the yellow box represents. It's like that's the actual county of Cedar. And then Stockton exists within Cedar County. Here's the Google Maps version. And it's kind of like sort of in the center towards the lower right, or you could also call that like southeast-ish area of the county. So just for reference, we've got Agape Baptist Church or Agape Boarding School, whatever you want to call it, sort of marked here on this version of the map, just so you know where it is, because we're going to look at maps. And I know looking at maps is not all that exciting, but I think you will find it exciting once I share with you how much all of this land and these buildings are valued at, in case anybody else was interested in potentially trying to hold Agape liable for all of the harm that they have caused kids. So interestingly, and this will come back to haunt us a little bit later, but I'm going to tell you this now. So Agape Baptist Church as an entity is the entity that owns Agape Boarding School. However, Agape Baptist Church only owns one of the parcels of land that's owned by this group of people. And it's not even the land that the actual school is on. It's the piece of land just south of where the school is. And so this part of Stockton that's owned by Agape Baptist Church, that's highlighted in blue here, is just south of Agape Boarding School. And it's about, I think, 120-ish acres or so. But as you can see here, just to the north of the property that Agape Baptist Church owns is a property that is not owned by Agape Baptist Church, even though Agape Baptist Church is the entity that allegedly runs the school. So there's something interesting right there, right? Which is that like there's this church that is supposed to be extremely rich and doing all these things, but the church actually only owns one piece of property, and it doesn't even own like any of the buildings that are like on the property. So that's weird. Whatever.
Right.
It's still got like some, land value, of course, because all land has some value. So anyway, there's just kind of like a higher like bird's eye view kind of the different parcels that are around the Agape boarding school. And so you probably recognize this bit of the map here, just above Agape Baptist Church. So that's the land that the boarding school is on. It looks like they've got a couple of buildings that kind of eked down here onto the Agape Baptist Church property. So the entity that owns most of the Clemenson owned properties, or most of the Agape Baptist Church affiliated properties in Stockton, is Agape Land Management LP. So Agape Land Management LP is essentially a limited partnership. Now, partnerships are typically, at least where I'm from, supposed to have more than one person as part of the partnership. But in this particular case, Agape Land Management, you may remember this from our last webinar, or not webinar, they're podcasts, aren't they? From our last podcast, has only one owner. So Agape Land Management LP is owned by Agape Holdings LLC.
Okay.
So that is a holding company. And that holding company, which is the one partner in Agape Land Management, that one holding company, Agape Holdings LLC, is owned solely, or was owned solely, by James Clemenson. So as we're looking at these properties and who owns them, it's mostly Agape Land Management, which is owned by Agape Holdings, which is owned by James Clemenson. So Agape Land Management, in this case, as we're looking through these maps, equals James Clemenson, right? So James Clemenson is the guy who owns any property that has Agape Land Management listed as the owner. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that makes sense. And I'm curious to, like, I'm not sure if you're going to go in. I mean, he passed away. So
yeah,
really curious to see what's going to happen with all these things where he was the owner.
I'm so glad you asked that question. I already know.
Yes.
Can we come back to that one though?
Yes. We'll
okay.
stick a pin in it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. No, that was a good one though. So here is just another parcel that they own, and here it is kind of in the bird's eye view. So this is just to the right or to the east of the Agape boarding school.
Mm-hmm.
And they also own just a little bit of land to the south of the Agape boarding school. And so here's that piece of land. Just to the south of the other piece of land. And this one's only like, I don't know, maybe 10 or so acres. I have the acreage in the notes, but I can't see the notes right now because I'm presenting. So we'll look at those in just a second, though.
Mm-hmm.
Agape Land Management, aka Jim Clemenson, also is the sole owner of the actual Agape boarding school property that's run by Agape Baptist Church. And so there's that land plus all of the buildings on it. And as it turns out, there are many, 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 many buildings and improvements and structures on this property, 57 of them to be exact.
Wow.
So here it is sort of from a higher view, kind of along with all the other like pieces of land. And I think this one is also about, I guess, between maybe maybe 120 to 130 acres. Like I said, we'll check on that in just a second. And I did do sort of like an average acreage valuation for like the last like 20 land properties that were sold in Stockton. So I will have land values for you as well as building improvement values in just a little bit. So they own this little piece of land here, and you know, it may not be obvious where this is, but it's kind of just a couple of, I guess we'll just call them squares. A couple of, they're really like sections of, well, we can call them sections, like a couple sections over from the Agape boarding school.
Right.
And this just looks like land. There doesn't appear to be actually anything on it. And that's true for quite a few of the properties that this group owns. So here is another bit. And here is that piece kind of in relation to Agape boarding school. It's a little bit further northwest. So here's the Agape boarding school here. And here's like the other piece of land. And they have this one little tiny acre right here, and I have no idea what this is for. It's like this just teeny tiny little piece. Now they used to own this and this, but these two parcels got signed over to a new owner by James Clemenson pretty much on his deathbed on September 30th, which was just a couple weeks before he died.
Oh, wow.
And I have some of the records on that, but because that was fairly recent, I don't have all of the records on that yet. But yeah, they kept this little tiny piece for some reason when they sold the rest of this land in September or October, whatever.
So when I was at Agape, we helped build, and it was right down the street from where Agape was at. It was down the highway a little bit. We helped them build what was called Trinity, but now it's called Wings of Faith. It's another boarding school. Now it's Wings of Faith, which is a girls' boarding school that is associated with Agape, and it was right down the highway in that direction from Agape. So I'm wondering if that property, maybe that is or maybe you're going to get to that and I'm jumping ahead. So
I wasn't going to get to that. The Wings of Faith property is not owned by Agape specifically. However, James Clemenson was on the board of directors for the actual. It's actually Refuge of Grace. That's what they've registered as like the name of the business, and they're just doing business as Wings of Faith. Maybe I have that backwards, but yeah, I think I have that backwards. But it's fine. It's those guys, right? It's that's Bud Martin, right? Percy Martin.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So that's anyway. So that's interesting because when you're showing that, I'm like, oh, that's Wings of Faith right there. That's got to be, but I guess it's not.
It's probably where they keep the dungeon underground,
right? Or the bodies.
Wings of Faith is owned by Refuge of Grace, which was founded by Bud Martin. So he does own that now, though some of the property transactions that I went through and that I was able to download thanks to your donation, Griffey, were transactions involving Clemenson either owning property and quote unquote gifting it or quitclaiming it to these other entities, probably in exchange for some money that they didn't want to record because they didn't want to have that on the record. But also it looked like Clemenson was loaning money as well to his friends to buy the properties like that they needed to buy. So, I mean, everyone's real close, I guess, in Cedar County. And so like, if you need help, you've always got a friend or a neighbor to hold on to your land while you're getting sued. So it doesn't look like you own it. And then after you're done getting sued, your neighbor will give it back to you. It's fine.
Wow.
Yeah, that happened too. Okay. So yeah, they've got this little piece. I don't know what that's for. Now this, Amanda Householder told me about this one. Apparently sometime last year, or maybe it was the year before, it was sometime fairly recently, the guy who owned this nursing home, and this is a little bit further east and a little bit further north of Agape. It's actually like sort of in town. this is the nursing home. The nursing home owner essentially just like gave the nursing home and its land to the Agape Clemenson Family Foundation, and that's their like nonprofit family foundation that you can, I guess, give stuff to or bequeath land to, like on your deathbed or whatever. And so they ended up with this nursing home property that is not exactly near any of their other properties, but they've got it now, and I did do evaluation for that one too. So that's how they ended up with that piece of property. And then they've also got a family trust. And so, and they have used like the trust and the foundation and the various businesses they own to kind of pass these properties back and forth based on sort of what's happening in their own sort of community and what's happening with regard to like lawsuits or other troubles that family members of the Clemensons may be in at any given time. And so like what was super interesting is that like as I'm looking at these property documents, I don't know if you guys remember, but they were successfully sued back in 2015. And there was like a surge of interesting things going on with properties, like as that lawsuit was finishing off. Like they were transferring properties from this name to that name. They were pulling money out of another property. And it was just interesting because it was, obviously they had to pay on that lawsuit. And so they were using the equity in their properties to pay for that. And so I saw the same sort of thing in 2017 as well. That was when I think a nephew was in some legal trouble. And it was pretty bad legal trouble. And so I guess they did a whole bunch of weird stuff with their properties at that point too. And really all they're interested in is protecting their properties so that when they get sued, and they know they're going to, because, they knew they were going to get sued because they do terrible things. So like, why wouldn't you get sued if you're like beating the crap out of kids, Yeah. So they were trying to I don't know if they were trying to hide their properties or just protect them from, liability. I don't know what the deal is, but at any rate, they've got a couple different properties as owned by the Jim and Kathy Clemenson Revocable Trust. This may be their house. I don't even know. I've never been there. So like up here is the boarding school, and down here are those two little pieces that they own as the revocable trust. So I don't know if they actually live on property or off or whatever, but like there's buildings down there and someone lives there.
Yeah, when I was a student there, they lived on property. Like we helped build their there was normally a motor home or a fabricated home they bring in, and those would be the homes the staff lived in. But then we eventually built Jim and Kathy Clemenson's residence there at the school itself. Okay. But I've also heard that in more recent years that they no longer live on the property themselves. So who knows what? Yeah, that could be interesting. But I wonder if with that property though, or it could be like rented out. Who knows? Maybe they let someone live there and they pay rent. I don't know. This is super interesting, by the way. Like I'm loving.
Really? Yes, cool. I was afraid it was going to be boring. So I'm like, here's another map. Here's another map. Here's another map for you.
I'm I'm a data guy. That's kind of like what I do for work is like data diving. So like telling a story with information, like hard facts and information. So this is great versus, you coming on here and saying, oh, you know what? I think this and maybe this and kind of this and my Ouija board told me this. Like this is like
I shook the magic 8-ball.
Yeah. Do they own this property? Yes.
Believe me, I do plenty of speculation in my own head. However, if I'm going to report it to others, it's going to have to be fact.
Yes.
Otherwise, I lose credibility. I think of all sorts of crazy stuff in my head. Like you would not believe where this goes in my head. But no,
we can only imagine.
Facts only, friends. We're just gonna do facts. So, all right. So here's the full set of properties in Stockton, and so this was what was taking me so long and why I was late, you guys. It's because like I don't know how to edit like photos. Like I'm a researcher. Like I'm not into making stuff pretty, but I figured out how to pick a color and put lines on a map. So I did that, and so here we have in red the parcels that are owned by Agape Land Management. There are 6 total. There's this one here. Can you see my mouse moving or no?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. There's this one, and there's this little tiny itty bitty one, and then there's the actual school. There's the piece next to the school, and then there's this funky shaped one. And then, of course, these other properties, I think like Listland owns one of them, and I think this one's owned by like the Raricks. So it's like, everyone's all like sort of in it together, even if they don't, even if Agape doesn't own every single piece of property here. Here's a nursing home way up here in the upper right-hand corner. That's in purple. Wow. I lost the straight line drawer on that one, so it looks kind of funny. But so that's kind of how big that property is in comparison to some of these others. So it's not huge, but it's certainly got a lot of improvements built upon it. So it is valued at quite a bit. The blue is the actual property that's owned by Agape Baptist Church. And this light pink is the revocable trust owned property. And then this green property is the property that they just sold. So just before, as I said before, just before James Clemenson died, he signed over these 2 parcels here, this like funky looking mountain thing up on top, and this little Tetris-like shaped block here in the green. So Agape Land Management had owned those, and they no longer own those 2 parcels.
And you don't know who they sold them to, correct? Yeah.
Of course I do.
Oh.
It's actually, I don't know. I don't want to like, I don't know if this person's involved in Agape or not. So I don't want to like, put his name out there, but it is an individual who actually owns quite a few properties around Stockton, and they're big properties. And shortly after this guy purchased the property from Agape Land Management, he created a beneficiary deed willing this property to his children. He's pretty old, so I think he's just an old guy who's looking to pick up some land and leave it to his children or something. Or he could be a complete and total a-hole and in it with the Clemensons. I don't know, but I don't want to say his name. I will send it to you later, and you can let me know if you know who he is. How does that sound?
Sure. Yeah, yeah, that's great. I'm really curious.
Okay.
I'm just glad you didn't say. I don't want to say names. Well, if people have been in the news and their names out there, we could say it, right?
Heck yes.
Yeah.
Okay, for sure. Like as long as it's not like Ty Gaither or something like that. Like if you all of a sudden you're like, oh, they gave this land to Ty Gaither as a gift. So I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck?
Oh yeah, if it's someone who's already been in the news, or if it's somebody that I feel is not going to, be harmed in any way by me saying their name, then of course I'll say their name. But cool. I mean, I don't want to say the names of people who may not be involved at all. There's a lot of people who are really pissed at Agape out there, and they might see this, and they have every right to be pissed. But who knows? Like, I don't want anyone to misunderstand that someone who bought a property from Agape is part of this.
The thing you said, you say the names of the people that you don't think are going to be harmed in this. I mean, what about Jim Clemenson? Oh wait, is that kind of beating a dead horse a little bit? Maybe.
There's oh God, Jason. There's always the bad joke. I swear. You know what? Your podcasts are like freaking OG Law and Order. Remember Lenny Briscoe? Like like clockwork. 15 to 20 minutes in, there he is making some dumbass joke, and you do the same thing, Jason, every single podcast, and it's like, oh my gosh.
He sets it up as he's about to ask something very serious, and so he gets everyone's undivided attention. Like, this is about to say something really important right now, and it's like all of a sudden you're like, what?
Yes.
No,
I do it because I need to be worshipped and adored at all times.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Hmm.
There you go. This is cool. Like it's super. And I know there's probably like we've only been doing this like 30 minutes, so there's probably way more to the story. But so far, I didn't know this. And when I was at the boarding school as a student, they used to take us on Sundays. A few of us select students into town, into Stockton, to go visit the local nursing home and have a church service and sing hymns with the residents of the nursing home. And I am wondering if that is the same nursing home that we used to just visit as students, like all these years, like prior to this. But
It could
Well,
be.
how many nursing homes could Stockton possibly have?
yeah, right. It's this tiny little blip on the map. So I'm wondering, that's just weird. I don't know. Like that's
I'm
just
sure
weird.
it is, because why would some rando nursing home owner give Jim Clemenson a bunch of land if he didn't already have a prior relationship with him?
Right. And why? Like, why just gift it to them? Like, it's like that's. I don't know.
Because
It's weird.
I don't know. I guess some people.
Maybe he wants.
That's a thing. That's a thing. Like leaving your land to a charitable organization in your will
That's true.
is seen as like an honorable thing. And in
Yeah.
fact, that's how Agape acquired this blue property right here. This was
Oh.
like back in sometime between 01 and 05. I'll have to check the record, but there was like a family that had there were like 4 brothers and sisters, and one of the sisters was severely disabled, and she had inherited this land. And so they basically decided that because she was disabled and the family was going to take care of her for the rest of her life, like she wasn't going to do anything with this land. So they decided that they wanted to, be kind people and give it to the church. And they, when they gave this land to the church, they said, like, in the document, I've read through all these documents that you paid for, Griffey. Like, they said in the document that for 25 years, this land has to be used for religious purposes. And so it is funny that this piece of land is the only piece of land that is still owned by a religious institution, is because they were forced to keep it in the name of the church, because that's how that was the condition that was given to them when they accepted the property from that woman's family.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
Well, you know how
sad, too,
usually sometimes
'cause-
when you have people with a lot of money, they tend to give some of it away. So
yeah.
I guess when you know how it is. Whenever you go to funerals, what do they say? Oh, he was such a good guy. Give you the shirt off his back. He came in and the whole room lit up.
Yeah.
And usually the guy could have been a complete a-hole his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
He'd step on your hands if you were falling off the cliff. But yet he was a good guy, though. He was wonderful.
Yeah.
So
right.
that's
man.
I guess he wants to be remembered for giving something to somebody. I don't know.
Of course.
Right. So Agape Land Management owns the property, but Agape Baptist Church is the business that operates Agape Boarding School, correct?
Correct. That's exactly right. Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah. We'll come back to that too, because that is going to be fun, because I have a few more slides on that. But are you guys still able to see this okay? I mean, can I just slide like this, or should I go?
It's fine like this. Just know that you're showing all your bookmarks and you're showing all your other tabs that you have open as well. It's not just showing what's on this tab alone. It's showing the whole browser and everything.
Okay. I think that's probably fine.
Right. And other stuff you downloaded too down low. Like
I was snooping on David Earl Smock.
Yeah.
I'm cool with everybody knowing that. That is totally fine.
That's what she does for a living. She's a snoop.
Yeah.
That's what she does for a living.
I was definitely looking some stuff up on that guy. That's for sure. Cool. Okay. Well, I'm gonna quick go back. I'm not gonna flip through these two. I'm I'm not going to go through these slowly or anything. I just wanted to show you that, okay, the acreage, I have listed the acreage like in the notes down here. So the
Oh, there you go.
blue
Yeah.
property that's owned by the church is
Jesus.
91 acres.
Wow.
And then, whoops, that's the third time. Okay. So, and then this little chunk, just to the east is 30, almost 35. And then I've got two images for each property. So this little one is like 10. Whoops. Sorry. I was messing with something, I guess. Okay, so the Agape, the property that Agape is on is 121 acres. And
so that's about 231 acres right there.
And yeah. Don't worry, Jason. I did the math. It's on like one of the following slides just for you. So yeah, and this one's also 121.
I said it's about. I didn't say it was. I said it's about.
We'll see how close you were.
Well, there's more.
There's more.
So this piece up here is 146, 147 roughly. So that's like just a big piece of land that's got a river running through it. And that's probably worth a bit more, but I did just calculate the land values based on the average sales. I didn't like include, whether a river was on it or whether it was in wetlands or anything like that. So it's just like, my guess is a guess. I think it's close to accurate, but it's probably not perfect. And then they've got, that like one little acre chunk right there for like no good reason. Here's the nursing home that's like 7.4 acres. The revocable trust properties are 3 and I think 1.5. So yeah, like about 4.5 total for the revocable trust properties. And then, let's see. Yeah, I think that's about it. And then the acreage that they sold. So here's one of the two pieces that they sold. So this is 21.24 acres. Oh, you're seeing the guy's name. Well, okay, I guess the cat's out of the bag. Now, everybody who's watching this person may just be an innocent guy who bought property from Clemenson's. Okay,
right.
So like, nobody needs to like snoop or do anything.
I can take it out
to the person's name here. Okay, all right, cool. I'll stop then. And then the other piece that they sold to that person was about 124 acres. So lots and lots of acres going on in Stockton. Lots of them are being sold here and there.
Right.
So now we have, I'm almost afraid to, oh wait, okay, yeah. So here it is. So this is the deed. Oh God, Jason, I'm sorry. I was going to redact that and I totally forgot. We have to take this guy's address out. I mean, his name there is fine, but we have to take his address out. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I missed that. At any rate, so here's the actual deed from September 30th, 2021. So just a couple of months ago, when Agape Land Management, which was the owner of that property, sold the property to this guy right here. And, here's the beginning of the property description. And here's the next page. Here's the end of the property description. And here is the evidence that, and there's evidence that filed at the Secretary of State's office too, but that's boring to look at. This is more exciting. Here's James Clemenson's deathbed signature on September 30th. And clearly it says he is representing Agape Land Management. Agape Land Management is selling the property, and Agape Land Management is owned by Agape Holdings, and then James Clemenson is the sole member of Agape Holdings. And so he says it, loud and clear right here. I am the owner of Agape Holdings LLC. Agape Holdings is the owner of Agape Land Management. So like, this is James Clemenson's property. Just making sure that much is clear.
And does it say how much? Is any financials listed on how much they sold it for?
No, I made a guess that it was, based on my calculations. Ooh, hold on. Did I get, yes. Okay. So here's the fun slide. I know it doesn't look very fun because it's mostly words, but it is, I promise. So, here's the proof that I actually did math. So
Yay.
there were recent Cedar County sales. So these were the per acre prices for, like, I think it was the last, I don't know, 20 or so pieces of property, 19, I guess it was. And so I averaged those out. Now, as you can see, like, it's pretty wide ranging. Like, there's some property that sells for, $5,641 per acre, and there's like $1,800 per acre. So, everything all averaged out works out to roughly $2,708 per acre. So this is land only, does not include any buildings. Okay.
Right.
So we're talking about just plain old land.
Yeah.
So essentially, since Agape owns still 534 acres of land, the total land value I'm estimating is about 1.4 million. And that, of course, does not include the value of the land that they recently sold. And I do not know how much this sold for. So this is my estimate at how much it is worth. It may have sold for more or less than that. So, it's clear that at least as of, the end of September, they needed cash. And it's also clear that fairly recently they needed some more cash because, and I don't have the screenshots of these documents on my computer right now because there's lots of names and signatures on them and stuff like that. But essentially what happened very recently on like December 17th or so was Brian Clemenson, on behalf of Agape Baptist Church, got a $600,000 loan. And this is all like public record in the property record. He got a $600,000 loan using the property as collateral. And then Kathy Clemenson, on behalf of Agape Land Management, got another $600,000 loan using the property as collateral. So those two combined got $1.2 million in loan money plus this $392,000. And so one might ask, there's like what, 10 lawsuits against them now? What are they doing with this money?
And counting, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where you get to speculate, right? And we don't know what they're doing with this money. But this is where, like, that's when your mind goes crazy. Like, are they going to run? Are they just going to like take all the money and run and default on the loans? Or, like, ooh, I'm speculating, by the way, just
right.
Sure that that's clear. Or are they going to like offer a payout to all the people who are suing them and, think that they're going to get away with only paying out, 1.2 or 1.8 million or whatever, for like everybody who wants to sue them? Like, I'm not sure about that. So, and there's some other things you could think of too, but,
right.
I mean, I had the thought that, okay, so they probably just, they probably have cash somewhere. Is what I'm thinking.
Sure.
I don't think they're just out of cash. I mean, they could be, but if they do have cash somewhere, they probably don't want to dip into their bank account to spend money on whatever they're spending it on. Right now, I'm guessing it's lawyers. They're very expensive, but also paying, settlement fees and whatnot for
well, that
the
depends.
lawsuit.
That depends on the lawyer. He could be a brother in Christ who's doing it for free.
Oh, I highly doubt that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, and also they have revenue.
Oh, you're joking again.
No, I'm not.
No, they're not.
You know how it is sometimes. You get those, they have doctors and lawyers in the church, and if something happens, the guy comes up and says, hey, I'll represent you pro bono. Don't worry about it, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that could be.
It could be,
And they're also still getting the revenue from having students there because they still have students there. Last I heard, I thought they were down to like maybe 70 students at around on average, $4,000 a month per student. That's $280,000 a month. That's 3.3 million a year.
Wow.
Like that, but they're still needing money on top of that. It's really interesting that they're. Something.
Just a quick math there, Griffey.
I pulled up a calculator. I wish I did that in my head.
You cheated.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I have some guesses where it is, but I can't speculate.
Right. I bet these are good facts, good information for anyone else out there watching this, and they might have other pieces of the puzzle that they could put together with this information.
Yes. I think the lawyers would probably be interested in knowing kind of like how much land Agape has, even if this is just in Cedar County. We'll do another like segment on where the rest of their land is or something. But like just knowing how much the opposing party is worth kind of helps with settlement negotiations. And so I do hope this is helpful for those folks. So the building improvements, my gosh. So I have like a ton of documents that I was able to download from the assessor's office, and the assessor helpfully lists each building on the property and what its sort of replacement value is. And so now there's like assessed value and there's like all these different kinds of values, but essentially I used what I thought would be the most accurate value for the buildings that were on the properties, which ended up being the replacement value, simply because, well, I'll spare you all the weird math details, but it works out in the end. So essentially, across all of their properties that they own, and most of the buildings are on the Agape boarding school area property. But yeah, those are worth combined a total of about 6.1 million. And that does include the church. And the church, I would say like the total value of that church property was, maybe $1 million or so, or valued at maybe $1 million, give or take a couple $100,000. So so they've got, land worth 1.4 million, buildings on the land worth 6.1 million. So like my estimate in Stockton is that they're worth roughly 7.6 million. This could be give or take, $1 million or two. I don't know, but we're not looking at billions of dollars, but we're also not looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars either. And so if these guys are trying to offer a settlement, of like $10,000 to somebody who's suing them, it seems like maybe that, isn't really an appropriate sort of compensation for the level of harm that they have caused, especially since they have all this money. So they've, or at least this much value in property anyway.
Yes, that's the thing, like driving that point home. This is just with property. This is not, who knows what other investments they have, or money they have sitting in a bank account underneath their, their pillow at night, like whatever. Like this is just property alone is say $7 million. Like, I doubt all their eggs are in this basket.
Very good point. Okay. How are we doing so far? Should we keep going?
Dude, my adrenaline's pumping.
Okay.
I'm excited by this stuff. I don't know about you, Jason. Are you?
Huh?
Let's see.
Jason, are you
fell
there?
asleep.
Jason,
I'm here.
Is James
Nice.
and Laura?
Nice.
Yeah, I'm here.
Let's see.
I'm listening.
Do I have? Okay.
I
I just want to see how far I get to go with some of the things that I downloaded earlier. We can go through this. So, all right. So I've got a bit of a timeline from the early years that just kind of shows us, it sort of just traces their finances and their activities during those early years, even going as far back as to their Othello, Washington days. So, as you may know, the Agape Baptist Church was once called Agape Ministries. Agape Ministries used to be in Othello. Some former students actually were at the property in Othello, Washington, when the Clemensons actually moved. But here's something interesting. So if we look at the, where is it? When did they sell that? Oh, yeah. Okay. So Actually, you know what? Let me just go. Well, let me just start at the beginning because this is a timeline, so we should just start at the beginning. All right. So, in '97, the Clemensons bought land in Stockton. So this was a small piece of, not small piece of land. It was actually pretty big, but they bought the piece of land that the Agape boarding school is on now for $218,000.
Wow.
And they got loans for all of it. So one loan was for $25,000 and the other loan was for the rest. And so they basically were like, as a group of individual people, they bought it in the name of Brian Clemenson, Kathy Clemenson, Jim Clemenson, and the wives' names were on it and everything. So it was like Alan, Brian, Jim, and I have forgotten
Laura.
Kathy, Kirsty, and what?
One thing though.
Yeah.
Just asking, if they left Othello, I'm sure they had to sell all their property there.
Oh, I'll get to that, dude.
Oh, okay, dude.
Just saying. Yeah, they did.
Wow. Okay, that's it. I'm just gonna. Guys,
yeah.
You're on your own. You're on your own.
Yeah. So they had no. You keep asking questions. I don't.
I'm just kidding, Laura. Keep going.
All right.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So like they borrow all this money from the bank to buy the property that Agape boarding school is currently on. That was in July of 1997. Then in January of 1998, they bought like a bunch of land in this other area. I can't even remember if it was like north, south, east, or west. They don't own this land anymore. They sold it at some point, but they had to get some loans for that property as well on January 26, 1998, totaling $150,000. So, and it was like two different loans. It was one for $25,000 and one for $125,000. So they do the same thing, buying these two properties in Stockton. And so right around, I guess it would be January 26, 1998. As of January 26, 1998, they would have had approximately $350,000 in debts. And I estimated at $340,000 to $368,000 in debt. And this was all debt to the bank for properties.
Sorry, I see where this is going already. This is great. Yes.
Here, I'll make it bigger then. Let's go back to the slideshow view. All right. So then on April 22nd, Clemenson, just sort of out of the blue, contacts his insurance company and increases his fire insurance coverage to $350,000. It had been like $100,000, but somehow he increases it to $350,000. The exact same amount that the properties were worth. Fine. So I guess the exact same amount, not that the properties were worth necessarily, but that his loans were for.
Yeah, right.
So then, so that was on April 22nd, 1998. So he gets that all squared away and signed on April 22nd. Then, how many days are between April 22nd and June 6th?
A lot.
Is that just enough time to have the, I forget what it's called, but basically like when you put something in place, like in like
the underwriters like do all their work, and I have no idea. Like I don't know much about insurance, actually. So there was the mysterious fire on June 6th, 1998. Thank goodness nobody was hurt. And then incidentally, just like, less than 2 months after the fire in Stockton, that was finally when Clemenson got indicted on those felony charges in Washington.
In Washington. Yeah.
So they had already been investigating him in Washington. I don't know when they actually moved the students from Othello to Stockton, because they came to Stockton in 97, but they were still very much in Othello in 98, right?
Yeah.
Because that was when he was indicted on those felony charges. So then on November 23rd, 1998, so just a few months later, after the fire, after they increased their coverage, so Clemenson pleads guilty to asbestos violations in Washington. He had been charged with a felony, but that charge got reduced to a misdemeanor in exchange for that plea. So he gets probation for like 5 years, I think.
Jim Clemenson?
Jim Clemenson, yeah.
Huh.
So
Wow.
like he was already setting up his homestead in Missouri
Old jailbird Jim.
during
Right.
his trial, or not really. I guess it wasn't a trial, but during his negotiations with the federal courts on the felony charge. So like as his attorneys in Washington are negotiating for him to like not have to go to jail, he's like planning all these property purchases and doing all of these property purchases and having fires and trying to get insurance on the fire in Stockton. So he pleads guilty. He does get the charge, as I said, was reduced to a misdemeanor. So he got 5 years probation and like, I don't know, a $1,500 fine. And he only ended up having to pay $1,000 of it because the judge decided to just forgive him the other amounts that he was supposed to pay or something. So then January 11th in 99, he got another loan for $325,000. So like, I don't know what's going on here. Like he's in debt kind of up to his ears between the Agape Baptist Church and his family. Because like the family signed the $218,000 note and the church signed the $150,000 note. And so he's in debt for that amount. So then after the fire, he gets another $325,000 loan using the land as collateral. Then 2 days later, they basically sell Agape Ministries, which is a nonprofit that was filed in Washington, to a guy named Don Butcher for $22,000. I guess they worked it out so that the $22,000 from Don would be like a gift or some sort of exchange of, I have no idea. But anyway, they sold their nonprofit for $22K. So it's owned by Don Butcher now in Washington, and it still exists. And initially, Paul Floor, who I think is a relative of Brian Clemenson and Kathy Clemenson, remained on the board of that nonprofit that they sold in Washington to Don Butcher for a period of time before he was somehow removed from the board. So I don't even know if they have anything to do with Agape Ministries in Washington. I have like zoomed in on that property, and I don't think they do, but you never know. So, so they're like just getting in more and more debt, it looks like, in the late 90s, right? So like February 25th rolls around. This guy's already had to pay for attorneys in Washington. He's had a fire. He's gotten a bunch of loans on this property. So like most of the property that he owns is actually owned by the bank. So then he gets another $49,000 loan against the land that they own. And just a couple of months later, they file suit against Church Mutual for not agreeing to pay out the original $350,000 because, well, that was kind of a whole thing, right? You guys remember there was a big court case, and then that court case eventually got appealed, and it was just a big fat hairy deal. But basically, they continue to sue the Church Mutual Life Insurance Company for the $350,000 plus like another $5 million in punitive damages or something like that.
Shit. But that was for the fire?
And yes, they sued their insurance company because they were mad at the insurance company for not paying out the entire $350,000 of insurance coverage. And the insurance company was like, well, first of all, like, you did some stuff wrong with the paperwork. Second of all, there was evidence of arson.
Right.
They said that. So, I'm going to show it to you next, and because I can't say stuff like that just out of the blue without having documentation to support it, and I do. So I'll show you that next. But they're still like in debt, and by the end of 1999, they were in debt almost $500,000. So I think at the time, we're probably like, oh crap, like we're kind of in debt and we're doing bad things and we're getting in trouble. And so what do? I know, we'll sue our insurance company and for this accidental fire that happened. So, so that's an interesting timeline. The church argued, not the church, the insurance company argued with the court in the original lawsuit. So there's two cases, right? There's the original lawsuit where the Clemensons are suing the insurance company, and then there's the appeal because the insurance company appealed because the Clemensons were awarded, like $192,000 or something during the initial trial. So the insurance company appealed that, and the insurance company lost. The Clemensons actually won that lawsuit.
Oh, dang.
Praise
Let
Jesus.
me see. How do I? Oh, right. Good view.
So just that timeline you went through, by the way, that was almost the whole time I was at Agape. I got there in July of 98, right after the fire happened, and then as a student, helped with rebuilding that school from the ground up. Like, it's so gnarly. So it's like fire happened.
Really?
Yeah, I got there. I think it was July 11th, 1998. I know it was July 11th. Yeah, it was July 1998. I know that much.
Oh my gosh.
It's just crazy. Yeah, it's very, very interesting.
I'm gonna show you something then real quick.
Before you show us,
yeah.
We've hit the hour mark. Stay on. We're just going to bring us into a part 2, okay? So
sounds good.
Stay right there. Thanks everybody for watching. The part 2 will probably be there will be a link in the description, so just click on that to continue this. All right. So for the Hammer Podcast, I'm Jason. You take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Thank you, James and Laura, for being here. We'll see you in just a few minutes here. All right.
Cool.
Everybody,
should I change my
yourself.
shirt?
I see where you're Jason.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got it, right? All right.